Hi, and welcome back to another video. And today we'll be talking about all the special election races that took place last night. We will be talking about the two special House races that happened in Florida, and of course the Wisconsin Supreme Court election, which I'll be saving for much later in the video. So this video will probably be very long. I'll be analyzing all the elections that took place and what is my personal opinion. Did the Republicans benefit? Did the Democrats benefit? And what are these elections showing in the in the current second Trump administration? So, the two House special elections that took place in Florida, the 6th Congressional District of Florida and the 1st Congressional District of Florida. As you can see right now, I have the 6th District open here on below. We have the 1st District. Now, the 6th District was previously and formerly held by Mike Waltz, who is now in Trump's cabinet and is no longer a member of Congress or a sitting House representative. And now to replace him is Republican Representative-elect Randy Fine. Randy Fine winning this race by 14 points. 14 points. And I know what you're thinking. Wow, that seems like a really big lead. Well, not exactly when you look at this as, yes, this is a low turnout election. And in Florida, the population, the voting population is full of Republican Trump supporting voters. They are full of them. And when there is a high voting turnout election, like, say, a presidential election in 2024, these, Trump voters, they show up. They show up for Trump. They even, flipped what was once a county that voted for the Democrats, where Trump won it by 11 points. And previously, 4 years ago, you had Biden winning it by 7 points. You also had Hillary winning it by even more. And now, last year, you had Trump winning it by 11 points. A massive shift to the right, a massive shift for the Republican Party. And it was a huge victory for the Trump, not just the Trump campaign, but also Donald Trump himself and for his upcoming presidency. Something he could say, these people voted for me. These people wanted me. And that is why Donald Trump is constantly saying that he has this, this historical mandate, despite Donald Trump winning the popular vote by a very small margin. But still, Donald Trump has flipped counties that haven't flipped for Republicans in years. Let's look back and see if we can find the last time this county, Miami-Dade, flipped. We don't know. So there are no counties reported if we go back far enough. But really, you really don't see it. You don't. I mean, this is what we get. We don't have counties for what is 1988 apparently. But yeah, this is the first time in a very long time that this county went for Donald Trump, and in a high voting turnout. Sure, the voting turnout was much lower than 2020, but 2024 was a voting turnout where Trump's MAGA base showed up for Trump. They voted. Trump got 77 million votes. And Donald Trump won the election, and he flipped counties that haven't gone Republican in a really, really long time. Maybe since, when Ronald Reagan won his landslide election in 1984. So Donald Trump was able to win counties that have never won Republican before. And it was this election, despite of how you look at it for 2024, it was an upset for Donald Trump. This election was extremely close, and you can see that. When Donald Trump won Pennsylvania and he got 120,000 votes. When Trump won Michigan and he got 80,000 votes. When he won Wisconsin, he got 29,000. North Carolina, 183,000. Georgia, 150,000. Arizona, 187. And Nevada, 46,000. Now, these don't seem like small margins, but trust me, they are. On the presidential scale, we have seen this all before. When Joe Biden won Pennsylvania by a point. And he was able to win counties that were able to cruise him to victory and send him to the White House. He was able to win the county that every single presidential candidate, when nominated and goes up for election, and when they campaign in Pennsylvania, this is the county you want to vote for, because every time this county, the way it has voted, has always voted the same way of when the winner does. In 2020, this county voted for Joe Biden for a point, and Joe Biden was elected president. In 2024, this county voted for President Donald Trump by also a point, and Donald Trump was once again sent to the White House. In 2016, it also voted for Donald Trump by 1.6. So, sure, Donald Trump, underperformed in this county by just, about half a point or more, but still, he was able to win this county by over, a point in 2016 and in 2024. Biden won it in 2020. And this county so far has been sending all these. This county kept Obama back in the White House. Obama was able to win this county against Mitt Romney by 16 points in 2012. So when you were a nominee and you were campaigning in Pennsylvania, this is the county you want to win. Sure, you have some Democratic strongholds, right? You have Philadelphia, which voted for Kamala Harris by 58 points, which is no surprise. This is a very, very liberal county, and that helps cruise Democrats to victory in Pennsylvania. Unfortunately for Kamala Harris, she wasn't that lucky. She was unsuccessful in winning Pennsylvania. She failed to win Erie County, Pennsylvania, and that is what sent Donald Trump to the White House just by 1,410 votes for Donald Trump over a margin. And that is what got President Donald Trump back into the White House, and what denied Kamala Harris a presidency, something her and her supporters were looking forward. So when it comes down to high turnout elections, my point here is that there are a lot of Trump's MAGA base that shows up for him. Look at what they did to Wisconsin in 2024. There have been a lot of counties here that used to be blue. There have been a lot in 2020 where Joe Biden won this state by also a very close margin. But this is what Wisconsin looked in 2024. All of these states, right? They came out for Donald Trump. Wisconsin was extremely close. Michigan was close. Pennsylvania was close. Georgia was sort of close. Wisconsin, or North Carolina, well, we all knew that was going to go for President Trump. Florida was not close at all. 13-point win for President Trump. But what I'm saying is that in these states, in Florida, in Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Arizona, Nevada, and several other states in the nation, that there was this MAGA base that came out for President Trump, like we saw in 2016, where they came out for President Trump, in the first time. And sure, they came out in 2020, but it was not enough to combat the anti-incumbency and the candidacy of Joe Biden. And it wasn't Joe Biden that defeated Donald Trump. It was COVID. It was frustration. It was poor economy. It was stuff like that, which was able to help Joe Biden cruise to victory, where he was able to win Pennsylvania by a point, Michigan by 2 points, Wisconsin by over a point and a half, Georgia by 0.2, under half a point. Sure, the Biden campaign was unsuccessful in winning Florida, but he made it very, very competitive. Now compare that to 4 years later. Look at where Florida was. A 10-point shift to the right. Wisconsin went to the right. Michigan went to the right. You get it. All the swing states went to the right. And when it comes down to elections like these, Donald Trump's base always shows up. Except when it comes down to midterm elections, like we have seen before, when you look at the Senate, in midterm elections, like we saw in President Biden's midterm elections, when you go down to 2022, where Trump's base did not show up at all. Sure, you had thousands and thousands of Republicans voting, but it was unable, to come. Oh, I forgot this takes you to Wikipedia. But still, Donald Trump's base does not show up for him when. There's very loud thunder right now. That scared me. But when it comes down to these elections, that you have, Donald Trump's base does not show up. You have like when Fetterman won by 5 points, when Warnock won by 2 points, when, all these states went blue. It was because Trump's base does not show up. And we are now seeing a familiar thing when it comes down to these elections. Randy Fine won by 14 points. But that is because Republicans in this district, not all of them showed up. All of them that were paying attention to this election showed up. But a lot of Democrats also showed up as well. Now, if we, compare this election to what happened in 2024, when these elections were up, when Trump's base showed up, when there was much higher voter turnout, So this is the 6th district. Okay, so when there was much higher voter turnout for this, Walz won by 33 points. 33 points. He got 66% of the vote, and Stocktron got 33% of the vote, and he won with 141,364 votes. Walz got 284,000 votes. His Democratic opponent only 143. Compare that to now, and you could see the much low voter turnout, where only 195,475 people showed up to vote in this election, and where Randy Fine got only 110,000 votes, and Josh Well got an 83,000 votes. Now, Josh Well was unsuccessful in winning, but the Democrats were able to do what they were hoping for, where they were able to overperform in this election, and where Republicans were able to underperform in this election. Where, a election performance, sure, they can go out and say, a win is still a win, but despite that, they have underperformed heavily by 20 points, which is not something you'd like to do in a district Trump and Mike Waltz have won by over 30 points. 30 points. Now, the same thing could be said in the 1st district, the 1st congressional district of Florida, where Jimmy Petronis has won this election by almost, a much smaller margin. I think Gay Velmont actually, overperformed, and she actually beat much of my, expectations. I thought she was going to get blown away when I saw these, election being much closer than I originally thought. I was very shocked. I did not see this coming. And I'm still surprised that this happened. I thought that Gay Velmont was a very weak candidate, and I didn't think she was going to get as close as Josh Weil was, but apparently I was wrong. Many other people were wrong, and she performed very well, not just because she's a Democrat, but because Trump's base failed to show up. They don't, like I said before, they only show up when Donald Trump is on the ballot, and in these, presidential elections where there is much higher turnout. Now, if we look at where this election was back in November, back when, when Gaetz was still a congressman, he won his reelection. Matt Gaetz won with 66% of the vote, defeating Gail Velmont, who, already won before by 30, where she got only 33% of the vote, and where Gaetz got over 133,000 vote, lead over Velmont, where Gaetz got a total of 274,108 votes, and Velmont only got 140,980 votes. Now compare that to now, and you can see the much lower voting turnout, and you can see the Democrats really turning out for this. However, it was not enough to win, but it was enough to help Gay Velmont overperform her last election result just about 5 months ago when she lost to Matt Gaetz, when she was defeated to Matt Gaetz. I do not believe that the Democrats' goal here was to win. I believe it was the Republicans' goal here to win, where they can come out, and like I said before, they could come out and they say a win is still a win. But you can't do that. Well, I mean, you can do that, but it's really hard to do that when you are underperforming a district both Matt Gaetz and Donald Trump won by over 30 points. And now what the Democrats are able to do here is really, look at this and saying Republicans are underperforming in these elections, and it's because Donald Trump is unpopular, Elon Musk is unpopular, their administration is unpopular, J.D. Vance is unpopular, and they could really tie it to the administration. And one of the more interesting things I think you will, notice about the map you can see here is this county actually voted for Velmont, something that did not happen around the last time. She won it by 3 points, despite losing the special congressional election by over 14 points, or, around 14 points. Sure, you still had Petronis winning, all these other 3 districts, but still. The fact that in Florida, a state that Donald Trump won by 13 points, where a Democrat was able to flip this county in this district by 3 points. And it really shows that Trump's base failed to show up, that Democrats were energized, and that they really showed up, despite them losing by, a double-digit margin. And I expect that Democrats will probably continue to do so. I don't expect any, Democrats down in Florida to start winning, but I do expect them to start overperforming by huge margins. And if this can happen in like this safe Republican district, then I assume that this could, really do some damage to any purple districts that are happening in Florida that are either controlled by Democrats or they're either controlled by Republicans. Mostly they will be controlled by Republicans because in recent years, Florida has trended massively to the right, and Republicans have been constantly defeating the Democrats down in Florida. And now with Donald Trump as president, maybe that can change. Maybe the Democrats can turn Florida around, maybe start to, begin to trend, left, which is already happening. This district, shifted left by 20 points. This district shifted left by 20 points. So these two districts in Florida have shifted left by 20 points. Compared to what happened just about, 5 months ago, where Trump was able to shift Florida, right by 10 points. And now these districts have shifted left by 20 points. That is much more than President Trump was able to do. And it's a bad start for the Republicans. Now, they can absolutely turn this around, but it's going to take, much work. Obviously, Trump's approval rating is going to, have to bounce here, where his approval is now, -2 points down. His disapproval has a 2-point advantage, where his disapproval is about to reach 50%. In his second term, I do not believe it has ever reached 50%. No, it is not. This is the highest it has ever been on Real Clear Politics polling average, and this is the lowest his approval rating has ever been on the Real Clear polling average. So, and this will most likely continue, as I've constantly been mentioning in my previous videos, that as long as Trump's approval rating gets worse, as long as it continues to sink, it will only harm more and more, Republican candidates. And we're seeing this in these safe Republican districts that, Matt Gaetz and Mike Waltz were able to win by over 32 to 33 points. Now you have Jimmy Patronis winning it by 14 points. You have Randy Fine winning it by 14 points, which looks a horrible performance for Republicans, especially when it shifts left by 20 points. Something that should not be happening here at all. But because Trump is president, because his administration is beginning to be unpopular, and so is his approval rating, now these districts that originally voted for the Republicans by 30 points is now shifting left by 20 points. And I predict this will probably, continue to happen. It most likely will, as long as Trump gets more unpopular. If, it turns around and Trump starts to get more popular again, we'll probably see Florida shift back to the right. But until now, or until then, Florida, these two districts have shifted heavily to the left. And now it is time to get on to the Wisconsin Supreme Court election. I am very excited. Obviously, the obvious was made very well that this was going to go heavily to the Democrats. Now, this is a liberal-backed judge. This is a conservative-backed judge. And this election, being 10-point lead for the the liberal back judge or the Democrat or whatever you want to call Susan Crawford, was much expected. I expected a 6-point lead win for Susan Crawford. Apparently she did 4 points better than what I expected, and Brad Schimmel did 4 points worse than what I expected. And this is probably going to continue down in Wisconsin, and a lot, this victory for the Democrats was able to happen because of Elon Musk, when Elon Musk got so involved in this. And I don't think it even has to do with President Trump's, unpopularity. I think that has to do with the congressional races, but I think Elon Musk played a massive role in this election, where Susan Crawford was able to energize Democrats, where Democrats were so enraged, so furious, that they came out in massive numbers and they voted for Susan Crawford, where they pushed her over the finish line, and they didn't just push her over the finish line, they got her this huge margin win by over 10 points. Where now it looks like that Elon Musk is a big liability for the Republicans, and we already got a report earlier today that President Trump is now considering removing Elon Musk's involvement with the administration. Because him being on the front lines, him being in front of the cameras, him attending rallies, him paying people to vote for these candidates is a bad look for not just the Trump administration, but for many of these Republican candidates. And it's hurting them. It is hurting them. I've said before that Trump's approval rating sinking is hurting these candidates. Well, Elon Musk hurt Brad Schimmel. And he hurt Brad Schimmel so much that Brad Schindler didn't just lose, but he lost by 10 points. Maybe if it was a 1-3 win for Susan Crawford, that argument, wouldn't be as valid as it is right now. But because Susan Crawford won by 10 points, that argument is sticking, and it is why President Trump is now considering removing Elon Musk from participating or being involved with the administration. And we will see if Elon is forced out, if something else happens. It is only a matter of time. But a very interesting thing to mention is that there's going to be another Wisconsin Supreme Court election next year, and it is this judge is up for re-election, and this is a conservative judge, a Republican-backed judge. Now, if this could happen in Wisconsin in an off-year election, just in the first couple months of Trump's, second-term presidency, what would happen in a blue wave year of 2026, which I'm assuming it's heading in that direction as of right now? What would happen in 2026? If this is the worst so far that could happen to Republicans, what happens to that, that conservative judge? And as this continues to happen, the liberal majority in Wisconsin for the Supreme Court will only get bigger and bigger and bigger. Of course, until we elect maybe a Democratic president, and like Joe Biden, they become unpopular, and maybe conservatives start, winning these local elections. But until then, it's looking really, it's not looking good for the Republicans, and Democrats have performed last night very, very well. And I predict that, they will continue to do so, for the governor elections that are coming up, this year, for 2026, for the 2027 governor races, and for 2028. But still, that is a long way, that's a long way to go. And, we will see what happens. We will see what happens. But until then, that is it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed watching. If you did, please like and subscribe, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye.